Boxing news! Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. Well, there are some very strong declarations from the WBA's featherweight champion, Erica Cruz. The fight with Amanda Serrano was offered to our team in December of 2020, and we accepted a mockery as $1,500 purse pay for facing her. We didn't care after all. They decided on another fighter instead, who she knocked out in one assault. I believe she meant one round, and I believe she's talking about Diana Santana, who Amanda Serrano faced late last year.
For the second time.
And she did stop Diana Santana in one round late last year. The statement goes on to say, "We already learned to give ourselves our place and value my work. If I want to fight Amanda, but wait her turn." Essentially, sounds a lot like what Erica Cruz is saying here, is that she was prepared to take Amanda Serrano on late last year for little more than $1,500. And in that situation, Amanda Serrano chose to fight someone else. She chose to fight Diana Santana for the second time. In the subsequent months that followed, Erica Cruz was afforded a world title shot, a world title opportunity at Janibek, and she capitalized on it. She won the fight.
That's great.
She is making some strong declarations here. She is saying in so many words that Amanda is going to have to wait her turn. But what she's not saying, what she's not addressing, is the recent news that she was offered a six-figure payday to unify titles with Amanda Serrano. I mean, I don't see anything about that in there. I don't see anything about the $100,000 that Lou DiBella and Amanda Serrano were saying they offered Erica to fight on the undercard of Jake Paul versus Tyrone Woodley. A recent article published on Boxing Scene, Amanda Serrano was quoted as saying, "I'm happy with these blessings that God has given me. I want to thank Jamie Mercado for accepting the fight since her compatriot, Erica Cruz, WBA featherweight champion, didn't dare. Anyway, I'm sure Jamie and I can steal the show on August 29th with this great war between Mexico and Puerto Rico." Amanda Serrano's coach and manager, Jordan Maldonado, said, "We only ask Erica Cruz that when she does her interviews, that she stops saying that she comes to the ring with everything except fear, because that no longer applies to her." And I can't even call this a case of he said, she said, because comes to she being Erica Cruz, she's not denying that she was offered $100,000 to fight Amanda Serrano.
She did. I didn't see it.
And if that story checks out, it really doesn't matter what she was offered in late 2020, even if it was $1,500. They offered you
66 times that amount?
just a few months later, so what you got to say about that? Oh, I understand that Amanda Serrano may be getting a taste of her own medicine. That's how many of you might be looking at this, but you know what? Two wrongs don't make a right. If we lambasted Amanda Serrano for walking away from that Taylor fight, we then can also lambast Erica Cruz for doing what Amanda did. I'm just going to give it to you straight, because it's the only way I know how to give it to you. The sooner Erica Cruz has that Amanda Serrano fight, the sooner Amanda Serrano lifts that WBA featherweight title off of her. And I don't know if Erica Cruz is stalling Amanda out because maybe Erica rather fight Sarah Mahfoud instead. Sarah Mahfoud, the reigning IBF featherweight champion, the same weight. I don't know if this is a play to try to get Sarah in the ring. I don't even know that Erica has enough financial backing to get Sarah in the ring. That's another issue entirely, but that could be what we're looking at here.
I don't know.
What I do know is 100 large is a little hard to sweep under the rug for a women's featherweight champion. There simply aren't that many offers like that one, totaling that kind of value for a women's featherweight champion. So if the story checks out, Erica Cruz walked away from a sizable purse and to do what and fight who?
And I can believe the offer was real.
That $100,000 offer the Serrano people said they made to Erica Cruz. I can believe that it's real based on what card the fight would have taken place in. It would have taken place on the undercard of Jake Paul versus Tyrone Woodley, set to go down in late August. I mean, I know that card probably don't mean a whole lot to a boxing fan, but that's obviously a card. It's, you know,
It is going to get some attention.
purists and the boxing snobs probably turning their nose up at the very mention of a Jake Paul versus Tyrone Woodley novelty boxing match, and I understand all of that, but Jake Paul really does have a sizable following and financial backing behind him, so it's safe to say that the money, in all likelihood, was there for Erica Cruz, and she decided to walk away from it. So until I see her address that, I'm going to assume that the omission of that information is an acquiescence of guilt, that you did walk away from that $100,000. That's why you're talking about stuff that happened last year. What about what happened this year?
Are you going to get around with talking about that?
In other news, unbeaten up-and-comer Janibek Alimkanuli, on the heels of his big win over Rob Brandt, posted a tweet that reads, "I won a championship fight. I'm number 2 in the WBO rankings. Munguia is number 1 in those rankings. I know they won't take the fight with me because I know I'm knocking him out. Andrade, where's he? Paco Veracel, Bob Arum, WBC Moro. I need my WBO world title." Now, why he's tagging Mauricio Suleiman?
He's a WBC president.
Would have been better off tagging Demetrius Andrade himself and Eddie Hearns.
Yeah, that would have made more sense.
But all fuckery aside, Janibek is one to watch out for in today's middleweight division, which has vastly cooled off since the ascent of Canelo Alvarez to 168 and 175 pounds. This division just ain't the hot ticket that it used to be. You just got a lot of guys that are staying away from each other. You can't get Jermall in the ring with Demetrius. Demetrius isn't having any luck cornering a Golovkin fight. Golovkin
Just threw his name in the hat for a Canelo fight.
That's right. In September, if things don't work out between Canelo and the PBC's own Caleb Plant, Golovkin is an option. He's receptive to a third Canelo Alvarez fight. And if that doesn't work out, he's willing to hold out till the end of the year to face Ryota Murata in Japan. 160 pounds has fast become one of the most ho-hum divisions in the entire sport of boxing, and that's saying a lot because 160 pounds, the middleweight division, is often classified as one of the glamour weights due to the historical matches that have taken place in the middleweight division. Just not lately.
These fucking guys aren't fighting each other.
And it's been this way for a while. It's been this way since Canelo Alvarez decided to ascend to 168 pounds. Kazakhstan's own Janibek Alimkanuli is one to watch out for, is one who can bring back excitement to the middleweight division, and he seems to have a Demetrius Andrade fight in mind. He's being very realistic. He knows that the Jaime Munguia people aren't very likely to fight him, so he's looking past Jaime, and he wants to go straight to the source. He wants to go straight to a Demetrius Andrade fight. Demetrius Andrade, who has been facing a scarcity of interesting opponents as of late. You don't really see a lot of guys targeting him for a fight.
Aside from Janibek.
And Liam Williams before him. Demetrius Andrade is going to find himself in a tough spot if the WBO so decides to order this fight, because I saw what Janibek did to Rob Brandt, the very experienced Rob Brandt.
The undercard of Loma versus Nakatani.
What you need to know about Janibek Alimkanuli is that as an amateur, he won gold medals at the 2013 World Championships, 2013 Asian Championships, and the 2014 Asian Games. He also represented Kazakhstan at the 2016 Olympics, losing in the quarterfinals. As a professional, he sports a professional record of 10 wins, no losses, with 6 knockouts.
He's got Demetrius Andrade in his crosshairs.
And he's had him there for a while. This isn't the first time Janibek has called Boo Boo Andrade out. Boo Boo Andrade, who doesn't really have much else to do. You might as well fight this guy. It's just that if he does, I'm not sure Demetrius walks away with that title.
Just being honest.
I'm just giving it to you straight. It's the only way I know how to give it to you. Everything about this Janibek guy is bad news. Bad news for Demetrius Andrade. Bad news for the middleweight division. Because this guy
looks like trouble.
dropped Rob Brandt in the 6th round of their fight before Rob decided to retire in his corner in the 8th. The middleweight division needs a fresh face, and that fresh face could be the face of Janibek Alimkanuli, because his countryman, Gennady Golovkin, whilst being the most proven, the most accomplished middleweight in the middleweight division today, he's not bringing much excitement to this division. I mean, how many people do you honestly think were excited about that Kamil Zeremata fight?
About 7 months into the year of 2021, he hasn't had a fight yet.
This guy might not show up until the 3rd or 4th quarter of the year, as the year is closing, and we already know that Gennady's got 1 foot halfway out the door anyway.
Yeah, that guy's circling a drain.
The middleweight division needs excitement. More excitement than Gennady Golovkin has been giving it as of late. More excitement than Jermall Charlo, Demetrius Andrade, and Ryota Murata have been giving it. That excitement could come in the form of Janibek Alimkanuli, who's running towards a Demetrius Andrade fight where everyone else is partying around him like a river around a rock.
Janibek has made it his mission to get that guy in the ring.
I'll tell you something. Janibek is spot on. Janibek is bang on the money when he says that the Munguia people, they won't fight him, and when they don't, Janibek might advance in the WBO's rank standings, and before you know it, they'll order a fight. Janibek is a top-ranked fighter, and In that situation, I don't think the top-ranked people would want to flip the bill for a Janibek versus Andrade fight. No. I think they'd send Janibek over with confidence that when he returns a champion. The way they did with Jose Ramirez when they sent him over there to fight Maurice Hooker.
Janibek is set to be everybody's problem very soon.
More specifically, Demetrius Andrade's problem, since he's taken special interest in his world title.
I think the landscape at 160 pounds is set to change very soon.
In other news, reports seem to indicate that Frank Warren is hinting that Daniel Dubois' next fight will be against Trevor Bryan, and the winner will be the mandatory for Anthony Joshua's WBA title. I talked about this previous videos, how I'm not quite sure it's wise for Frank to put Daniel Dubois in this situation fighting for this version of a WBA title, not because of Trevor Bryan and not because Trevor Bryan poses some great risk to Daniel, but because of what happens after that. Given what Daniel Dubois suffered at the hands of Joe Joyce, it became very clear that Daniel needs more developmental fights, especially now that he's breaking in Shane McGuigan as his new trainer. And I think, for what it's worth, Shane will get the best out of Daniel, but that will take time. Do you really want to be painting targets of any kind on Daniel's back when he's got so much upside? His whole career is ahead of him. Just 2 fights ago,
He suffered his first professional loss.
what are we talking about here? You go from losing to Joe Joyce to knocking out Bogdan Dinu, potentially knocking out Trevor Bryan, and this is supposed to get you ready for Anthony Joshua?
It's way too soon for a fight like that.
You know, the worst thing that could happen is he beats Trevor Bryan and the WBA subsequently orders that fight, because if they do, it's either you go in there with Anthony Joshua, get your head knocked off, or you don't go in there with him, and then it turns into a PR nightmare. People are going to say you ducked the guy.
Yeah, I don't think this is a good idea.
Really not sure what the play here is. I'm not sure what Frank Warren is thinking, because Daniel Dubois probably can beat Trevor Bryan. I think he can do that much, but lining himself up for an Anthony Joshua fight.
You pick up that trinket title, that's what you're doing.
Anthony Joshua is set to satisfy his mandatory challenger by way of the WBO, and based on the pre-existing rotation, his next mandatory would be the IBF's mandatory challenge.
Based on the rotation.
But you know, it's been 3 years since that fight with Alexander Povetkin. Alexander Povetkin, who was then Anthony Joshua's mandatory challenger. Anthony Joshua hasn't satisfied a mandatory challenger for the WBA in a long time.
And it's been less than 12 months since the Pulev fight.
The Pulev fight, which took place late last year, that was Anthony Joshua's last mandatory challenger by way of the IBF. And essentially what I'm getting at is, moving forward, if Anthony Joshua ends up beating Oleksandr Usyk, beyond that fight, it's possible that even though the IBF's mandatory is the next in the rotation, given the last time he satisfied one for them, perhaps the WBA's mandatory...
Perhaps a mandate from them will be next.
Anything's possible. And what you have to ask yourself is, if by that time Daniel Dubois is in possession of that version of the WBA title, the version that lines him up for an Anthony Joshua fight, is Frank Warren really going to go through with that?
No way, I don't think so.
And finally, per tweet from Michael Benson, Josh Taylor on Javonte Davis. He's a very good fighter, very skillful, but he was getting outboxed by Mario Barrios. Listen, I'd absolutely destroy him. It's a good fight, a big fight, but I'd absolutely smash him to pieces. And, you know what, I feel so inclined to agree, because Javonte Davis hasn't proven anything at 135 pounds, and he really hasn't proven anything at 140 pounds. I mean, people are constantly oohing and eyeing at these highlight reel knockouts he gets, but these are highlight reel knockouts over off-brand opponents.
They are.
Took you 12 rounds to stop a one-legged Yuriorkis Gamboa, and...
Yeah, he knocked out Mario Barrios.
But who the fuck was he?
Nobody.
You know, I can wrap my mind around why it is Leonard Ellerby matches Javonte Davis the way that he matches him. I mean, I understand it, even though I don't condone it, but I do understand it. It's the fight fans that I don't understand.
You guys are buying into this crap.
Javonte Davis, for the better portion of the last 3 or 4 years, has fought absolutely no one of note. No one worth talking about.
Leonard said he's not staying at 140 pounds.
No likelihood he's set to move back down to the lightweight division, and the rumor mill indicates he's looking at a Jojo Diaz fight, even though Jojo Diaz is looking at a Devin Haney fight. Better still,
What's with all this weight jumping?
if he just moved up to 140 pounds, and you guys think he can beat Josh Taylor, then why don't you advocate for the fight instead of giving me reasons why it shouldn't happen?
Yeah, this guy beats everybody in a hypothetical scenario.
Hypothetical arena with hypothetical opponents in a hypothetical setting, just not a real-life setting.
I've actually seen people say they think he can knock out Josh Taylor.
Robert Garcia seems to think so, a trainer that is held in high esteem many circles, but even his professional anecdotes are still just anecdotes, not a substitute for an actual fight with an actual fighter that will have an actual outcome. They're creating this environment to where Javonte Davis beats everybody in a hypothetical scenario, so there's no need to see a real one.
And that simply won't do.
Whatever anecdotes, professional or otherwise, are out there in reference to Javonte Davis's abilities as a boxer, they're based on who he's been fighting. But who has he been fighting? You're knocking out guys like Cuellar and Fonseca and Ruiz and Munoz and Barrios. I mean, seriously, who are these people? Look, I'm gonna be honest. I don't think that any capable fighter, any who's who boxer from 130 to 135 to 140 pounds, Josh Taylor included, I don't think that anybody should waste time fielding questions in reference to Javonte Davis or a Javonte Davis fight, because we all know it's not going to happen.
You're actually playing into Leonard Ellaby's gimmick.
It's a gimmick to where Javonte Davis's name becomes attached to a fighter that's buzzing at that time, in this instance, Josh Taylor, because Josh just became the junior welterweight division's undisputed champion. This gimmick keeps Javonte Davis's name in circulation without Javonte Davis actually fighting the fighter that they're talking about. Before it was Josh, it was Lopez, and before Lopez, it was Lomachenko. I mean, how long was Davis's name attached to Vasyl Lomachenko, even though they never fought?
You guys are giving him free press.
If you know that guy's not gonna fight you, why even bother addressing him?